Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Money Matters Top Tips for Success, where each and every day I bring on new business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and have them share their top tips for success with you. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have AdaPia Dorico on the line, and she is Principal and VP of Strategy over at Alpha Investing. AdaPia, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah. Hi, Adam. Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm excited to get more into what you're doing over at Alpha Investing and how you're helping your clients. Before we do that, let's get a little bit further into your background. So how did you get started in your career in business?
I got started when I was 18 years old. I was very ambitious, a very ambitious young woman, and I got started in financial planning of all things and banking. So I was pretty set in those early years on a career in finance. I understood that having financial independence and being financially empowered was a way for me to be independent overall. And so I chose a career in financial planning and investing, and I went into it straight away when I was 18 and 19. And my career has zigzagged a lot. It's been over 20 years. I've been to Europe. I've worked in insurance and hedge funds, in banks, and I detoured for several years into pure play entrepreneurship in a completely different field that actually led me into online marketing and social media. And that field was the consumer products and entertainment industry. But it really kicked off my entrepreneurial skills. And I brought those two things together back in late 2013 when I first moved to Los Angeles. And I became very well acquainted with the burgeoning Silicon Beach scene, venture capital startups, and I got into the real estate crowdfunding space. And I was actually one of the first people in the space. I helped launch one of the first platforms that is called Patch of Land. It was essentially a hard money lending platform, but I spent several years doing a roadshow basically and brand and communications and marketing around the benefits of crowdfunding in general and specifically real estate crowdfunding. And so I've had this very varied career, and it's dovetailed a lot of this entrepreneur in me that I've always had, but I didn't know that I had it until I was in this hedge fund. I was working in a hedge fund in Switzerland in 2008, and when everything happened with Lehman and Morgan Stanley and the Great Crash, that really pushed me more into pure entrepreneurship. So I've had this zigzag path, but I've always been super, super clear on wanting to be financially empowered. And no matter what I've done, because I have a Bachelor of Business Administration and a business economics degree, I knew that those were key factors and that those would allow me to do anything that I want. And so now I'm at Alpha Investing, which we'll talk about in a minute. But in addition to being able to do what I do over at Alpha Investing, which is investing related, I also have carved out this life in this space for myself to do creative work. So like you, I write books, I do public speaking, I give back in ways that I might not necessarily be able to do on my career side, but I do personally, and it just enriches everything about my life.
That's awesome. And I love the way you said that, the zigzags. And we all have zigzags in our career as entrepreneurs and otherwise. And so that being said, there's some younger audience that are maybe where you just started when you were kind of finding your path. What kind of advice would you give to those new entrepreneurs that are really just getting started out there?
So one of the things that I would say is when you're an entrepreneur, you're working in a field of complete possibility. And when you're an entrepreneur, you probably have a visionary streak. And most people don't. And if I could give myself this advice all those years ago, I was very sensitive to criticism. And if I had been stronger against criticism, I might have been able to, potentially push through a little stronger and believe in myself, because a lot of the things that I understood to be true were very much true. They were just very ahead of my time. And so as an entrepreneur, finding a community around you, not just a bunch of yes people, right? Like, we don't just want to be saying, oh yeah, that's a great idea all the time, but having a community that can give you really objective feedback on what you're doing to keep you strong in those moments when you're not strong, when you come up against a so-called reality check from people who are saying that's never going to work, or you have to do it the old way, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure we can all agree, when you look around the world today, a lot of the old way is crumbling, and it might look scary to people, but to entrepreneurs and visionaries and pioneers, it is so much opportunity, and it's opportunity to do good and do better. So in short, believe in yourself. Don't let the criticism take you down, but find objective people around you that can, that can hold you up when it's getting to you, but also tell it to you straight when you might be like, way far off the rails on something that is potentially a dead end.
That's awesome. I love that advice, and really that saves you a lot of time. So I love where you're going with that. Let's switch it up, AdaPia. I do want to get into what you're doing over at Alpha Investing. So you hinted on it. Let's go further. So tell us more about the company, please.
Yeah, so Alpha Investing is a private equity, private capital network. So we invest in real estate. So in a way, it's like equity real estate crowdfunding, but it's not crowdfunding. We took the best of that world, which is the low minimums and the technology platforms, and we pair that with a very, very high-touch relationship-based approach, which is one of the things that, let's say, on a technology platform side, you don't really get. You get a lot of chatbots, and you get a lot of automated flows and a lot of detachment from the people who are actually making the decisions, whereas there are 4 principles at Alpha Investing, of which I'm one, and every single one of our investors, or even people who are requesting access to be an investor, necessarily speak to one of us and always have access to us on our cell phones. So we pair what we believe to be a very necessary approach, which is the high touch, with the technology which enables the business to scale. So instead of it being tech first, it's relationship first, and technology is a service to us and to our investors.
That's awesome. And so what are there's some people listening right now that are in that investor category. What is the sweet spot for the right type of investor that should contact Alpha Investing?
So anyone who is interested in diversifying their portfolio with big ticket commercial real estate. So by big ticket, I mean some people, as you know, can buy their own small apartment building, maybe 2 units, 4 units, even like 8 units. We're talking about $20, $30, $100 million projects. So things that you just wouldn't, unless you're specifically an expert in this category, be able to invest in. So we invest in large multifamily, the senior living space, which is a huge growth space. So those 2 categories are very strong for us. So people who want to diversify into forms of real estate that are more direct, so it's not like a REIT. It doesn't have the fees of a REIT. It just doesn't look like a REIT. It's more direct. And who are interested in really building a portfolio on like a per project basis to shore up whatever else they might be doing. So we work with a lot of professionals, so doctors, lawyers, tech executives, and also a lot of real estate professionals as well. That's how the company was founded. So it's really high net worth investors. And we work with all manner of people interested in diversifying into bigger ticket commercial real estate.
Let's go a little bit further into any specific geographies that you're liking and or pursuing. And you mentioned the senior living space. Any other different sectors that you find interesting right now?
So geographically, so what we do is we work with sponsors. So this is interchangeable with developer, but they're not ground up projects. They're existing cash flow in place projects. So these sponsors are working across the country. We don't have a geographic region focus, but we have invested across 18 states with about 8 sponsors. So we're very selective. We don't do a lot of deals. We're extremely selective with what we do and who we work with. So it really depends where they're finding opportunities, because the market has grown so much, it's shifted a lot, and the opportunities have moved. So, in some areas, it doesn't make sense to buy buildings at the prices that they're at, for example. Or if you're thinking senior living, which is another really big category, those are not necessarily in the major metropolitan areas, because already with senior living, it costs a lot for people to be in these essentially these healthcare facilities. And those are the 2 big categories for us. We also look at student housing. We decided last year to really focus on these, what we call needs-based assets, which are housing. So Class B multifamily, senior living, and student housing. We will do some things opportunistically, but, at this point, we really feel that our strengths are here, and that's what we're focused on. And, just like there's some fun statistics that I can give everyone on the senior living space, because I know everybody talks about, hey, baby boomers are getting older, but, there's 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every single day in the U.S.
Wow.
Like, that's a lot of people. And, that's a lot of people. Not everyone needs, assisted living, right? Like, there's really interesting things going on in the way that developers are building communities and building buildings for baby boomers. But in general, this is a massive, massive category with a lot of fragmentation and small players and big players. So it's really heating up. I recently was visiting with my sister, and all they could keep talking about was this silver wave, or, oh no, the silver tsunami. The silver tsunami is coming, and then this is, the gray hair. But it really is. But there's so many interesting opportunities, for the entrepreneurs out there too. Like, you're looking at trends, right? You're looking at what's coming up. And if you look at a lot of the way that real estate is, developers and urban development, things like that, are catering to changing populations, you'll get a really good sense of where there are some new opportunities.
That's awesome. So, AdaPia, if somebody's listening to this and they want more information on alpha investing or to connect on, what's the best way for them to reach out?
So the best way is to go to alphai.com. And if you're interested in joining the private capital network, to click on request access. We follow SEC rules for what's called a 506B, so we don't publicly advertise our deals. So the best thing to do is to go there and request access, and then you'll get a response from either myself or one of my partners, and we'll get on a call with you. And if people want to connect with me personally, I am pretty easy to find with my name. I'm on Instagram. That's like a personal platform I enjoy a lot. And then, of course, LinkedIn. So if people want to connect with me directly on LinkedIn or on Instagram, I'm always happy to make new connections.
Awesome. Well, AdaPia, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and all the great work you're doing over at Alpha Investing to help your investors. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store, do all those great things we do to support our podcasters. I really do appreciate it. And AdaPia, thank you again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate the opportunity.